Three, two, one.
Suck a fart, cause you just got zated. Happy holidays, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Franchise Deep Dive, the podcast where we break down, dissect, and discuss all your favorite and least favorite movie franchises. I'm Jake.
And I'm Josh, and I'm still laughing over here. That was good. I honestly, I don't think I remember that quote either.
It's when the nerdy guy in the 2019 one who like has a crush on the main girl Imogen Poots. It's when he like finds his equipment all destroyed and like all the fratty guys like approach him and they're like, "What's up?" And he's like, "What do you want?" And he's like, "I want you to suck a fart because you just got zayd."
Wow. You know, I guess that makes sense because I was watching this at like 3 a.m. last night.
I don't blame you for tuning it out. I watched it right after watching the 06 one because apparently I hate myself.
Yeah. Oh, God. Well, at least we can maybe bring some better memories up by starting off with the 74 one.
Yeah, guys. So obviously, unless you didn't look at the title of this episode before clicking on it, we are discussing all three Black Christmas movies, that being the original from 1974, the 2006 remake, and the 2019 remake. A very unique movie franchise, specifically unique horror movie franchise, in the fact that I don't know if there is another franchise that only has remakes without having a single sequel. None of these films are successors to the previous one. They are all just simply remakes of the original film. They all have very, very vast differences. So it's not ever like a Psycho. When did that one come out? 98? The Vince Vaughn one?
Yeah, I think 98.
98, the Gus Van Sant directed one. So it's not like a shot-for-shot remake. They are very different in terms of just characters, what they explore, how they go about it. But yeah, we are going to be talking about all three of them in succession, obviously starting off with Black Christmas 1974, directed by Bob Clark, who you may also know as the director of another fan-favorite Christmas movie, A Christmas Story, which is a film that I really love. Not sure if you like that one.
Oh, I'm a fan.
Yeah,
I had to watch it every year. It's amazing. It's amazing I don't hate it because my little brother hates it.
Oh,
but
really?
I still, yeah, because it was on the loop. I don't know if your family did the loop, but
no, we didn't. The only ones that we really had on loop, I guess, as kids were the primary two were probably the Home Alone movies, and then also the stop motion animated Rudolph movie.
Rudolph. That's pretty good.
I like that movie.
I guess I forget what station it was on. Was it like TBS or something? They would
ABC
the network would have
maybe
it on the loop, but they wouldn't do it for like any other Christmas movie.
Really?
It was like Christmas Story would start Christmas Eve night, at like 8 o'clock, and then go all the way 24 hours to 8 o'clock on like Christmas Day. And it was on the whole day. And as we got older, we were like, can we like not do Christmas Story all day? Like, can we watch another Christmas movie?
Just
Holy
anything
hell.
else, any variety.
Yeah. I still like it, but like, geez, I don't want to. It's, you know what? When I think about it, I've seen that movie the most in my life. I had to have seen that movie. That's my most watched movie because
your most watched movie
has to be right. Like I watch it at least 6 times in one day.
Oh, you know what my most watched movie is?
What?
Hot Fuzz.
Is it actually?
I think I've seen it 40 times.
That's good. That's pretty good. Yeah, Shaun of the Dead is up there for me as one of my most watched, but yeah, Christmas Story has to be up there. What, so like 6 times a year for at least, 10 years. That's 60 times.
Oh my God. Jeez.
I mean, yeah.
That's insane, dude. I've seen this movie like maybe 5 times in my life. Or not this movie, but A Christmas Story.
That's what happens when your family just puts it on.
Jeez.
Doesn't take it off the channel. You know?
I resonate with it a little bit because I too had a Red Ryder BB gun as a kid. So I connect with that kid. Did you see the, not to completely divert, but don't worry guys, this is not going to be a long episode. We always say that, but bear with us.
I have a feeling this really won't.
No, yeah. Where was I going with that? Oh no! Did you see the new Christmas Story, the like sequel one? I think it's on like Disney. I didn't see it either.
Which there's two sequels, right? There is Christmas Story 2, and then there's the one where he's actually older,
like
right?
an adult. Yeah, I didn't see the new. I don't think I've seen either sequel. So
yeah, I don't either. But
yeah, back to Black Christmas, 1974. Like I said, directed by Bob Clark, had a budget of around $686,000. Box office globally, 4 million. I think domestically it was somewhere around 1.3 million. Boasts a 68% Rotten Tomatoes critical score and a 65 on Metacritic. Don't know the IMDb score because I don't really give a shit about IMDb. So I'm
with you.
Yeah, but no. So this is a film to set it up a little bit, give a little backstory. One of the most influential horror films maybe ever. I'd say just in terms of influence in the top 10. I'm not saying I put this in the top 10 horror movies, but just like if you had to make an influential list, Black Christmas 1974 is an extremely influential film. It influenced one of my favorite films, actually my favorite film, John Carpenter's original 1978 Halloween, and just was one of the, not the first, but one of the first to really put you into the perspective, the POV of the killer, which gives this film a very unique feel to it. I also didn't mention it's a Canadian film. They shot it up in Toronto, which is kind of cool. There's not a lot of Canadian horror out there unless you guys are fans of like ginger snaps. But yeah, so very interesting film, one that I somehow missed growing up. It's just when I was getting into the horror classics, it escaped me. But recently, over the last couple of years, have seen it. This is my third viewing, I believe. Yeah, and I don't know, I kind of love it. Not sure how you feel.
So how do you feel about, like, I don't know how true this is. I'm gonna believe it's true, but Halloween is like a very loose sequel of Black Christmas. Is that true?
So I actually had kind of come across this when looking through some trivia and history about this film, because I was just very curious, because this is in that debate of like, oh, what's the original slasher. However, I feel like Halloween could be seen as just a spiritual successor to Black Christmas, because John Carpenter himself has said that this film was very influential on Halloween. You obviously have the parallels of the killer in this movie only really being seen for at least 95% of the movie through his perspective. Obviously, the opening of Halloween has the POV of Michael Myers, and a lot of shots in the film are from Michael's perspective, watching Laurie, stalking the babysitters, and they obviously both play into a very similar sort of fear, and yeah, I'm totally down with that. If people want to say that Halloween is sort of like a spiritual sequel, I'm on that train. Sign me up.
I mean, I was reading that Bob Clark said John Carpenter asked if he was going to make a sequel to Black Christmas. He said no, and then he asked him, "What would you do? What would you do if I did?" Or like, what he would do with the story if he did. And Bob Clark said that the killer would have been caught in an asylum, which, I mean. So I think that's where he gets his premise and uses that. So like this, I mean, Halloween just wouldn't exist at all.
No, like I completely agree with that. And like we said, like this is one of the films that's sort of in the debate. If you ask Ghostface in the first Scream movie, Peeping Tom is the original Wait, is that the first one? No.
It's
Scream 4. It's Scream 4. I don't consider Psycho a slasher. You want to hear a crazy take, and it may not sound that crazy after I explain it. I don't consider Black Christmas one.
Yeah, that I heard a lot of people say that too. It really it's like known as one, but it doesn't really meet the requirements. It kind of like
it doesn't feel like one either.
I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like it leads a lot into, well, not that this matters, but like very mystery detective kind. I mean, it's still a horror movie. Like it's still, but what really constitutes as a slasher then?
And this is where the debate like comes in, is what is the true definition of a slasher? Because again, you brought up Psycho, and forgive my little reference earlier, it's actually Scream 4, that Ghostface is the one that brings up the question of what's the original slasher, and their answer is Peeping Tom 1960, which came out a couple years before Psycho. Or not, I'm sorry, not a couple years, a couple months before Psycho was released. So there is that debate over like what constitutes a slasher, and to me, I think it's a certain tone and maturity, right? And one thing that I think really separates Black Christmas from even a movie like Halloween is that mature tone and approach to the characters and how they're written. Because obviously a heavy theme in Halloween and a lot of the slashers that would come out after Halloween is this idea of being against sex and drugs, right? The characters who had sex, who, partook in drugs and alcohol, those were the characters that would get killed, and it was usually the virgin final girl who would survive the film. That trope kind of starts with Laurie Strode. Obviously, this film has its own sort of final girl, and we'll break down Olivia Hussey's character. I think that's her name, right? Olivia Hussey.
I
should have had the cast pulled up. That's on me.
Jess.
Yes, Jess's character, obviously a final girl. But no, the reason, so a big reason that I actually don't consider this a slasher is that approach, but also Bob Clark himself said that it's not a slasher. He said that when, and this was in a behind the scenes documentary that I was watching before we had started recording, but Roy Moore is the person who wrote the original draft of the script. It was given to Bob Clark. Apparently, Roy Moore sent it out to 120 different movie production companies. Wow. So that's, he's a go-getter, I guess, putting on that grind. But no, it landed obviously on Bob Clark's desk, and this is after Bob Clark had made 2 much smaller independent horror films. And Bob is in the documentary, and he said, well, at the time, the cheapest thing to get funded was horror pictures. And he's like, well, I didn't want to do porn. That would have been the other cheap option. So I thought that was a little funny kind of tidbit about Bob and whatnot. But Bob said that when he got the script originally, the original Roy Moore version, it was much more slashery. It didn't really give the female characters much agency. It was more sexualized. It was more filled with gore elements. And that's something that this film just doesn't do, any of those things. So apparently Bob Clark completely rewrote the script, changed, he said, over 50% of it, and I think that's where you get a lot of the maturity and the tone and presentation of these characters. They're not sexualized. The women characters, Jess specifically, has a lot of agency and has a great scene with her boyfriend in the film, Peter, played in a crazy fashion by the main actor of 2001: A Space Odyssey, which is insane.
Yeah, how did they get him?
Dude, so in the documentary, Bob goes into detail, and he actually has maybe one of my favorite quotes from a director ever at this point. I actually wrote it down. Let me see if I can find it. He said, "Give me an incredible script and weak actors, I'll give you a weak film. Give me a weak script and incredible actors, and I'll give you an incredible film." And I thought that was just such an excellent quote.
I always thought the like it was opposite though.
You'd think, and he does say like that, he thought that the script was very important in this film, like the way it was written. But in this film, I really do feel it, because this is one of the few slashers that genuinely has some really, really great performances from like the younger people. Like obviously, I love Donald Pleasance in Halloween, but a lot of the teenage actors who played the babysitters, they're okay. I think they're serviceable. They have some weaker moments, and I don't think the kids are particularly wonderful. But in this film, you really have a great array of strong performances, whether it be Claire's dad. Margot Kidder is a huge standout in this movie. I'm not sure if you feel the same way.
Yeah, no, when I watched this, I've seen this a few times, but so let me say this. Black Christmas, I used to be pretty low on And I think when I first watched it, I think I was just tired, and I was like just kind of like not fully into it. And then I watched, so like I always had it really like low, like rated low. I thought it was like, it felt, not that I have a problem with low budget, but I think it felt cheap from my recollection. And then I watched it and I was like, wait, there's a lot of good stuff in this. What was I thinking? Like even, I didn't even remember the acting being good, but I was like, the acting is pretty solid. Like there's no one, it's not like there's like, I don't think there's any like spectacular performances, but everyone is very solid in this.
I think Margot Kidder is pretty great.
I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe I kind of like Jess a little bit more, Olivia Hussey, but maybe because she has more of the screen time, so it's easier to like, I don't know.
I just, one thing that always bothers me in movies is like bad drunk acting. Like when it's and we actually see some pretty bad drunk acting in some of the later Black Christmas movies that we'll definitely discuss. But I think Margot Kidder does just a really, really good job in this movie at like being a convincing drunk, because we all know like the type of person who they're completely fine one moment and then just at the drop of a dime like can get very like aggressive when they're drinking.
Yeah. She's also in like my favorite scene in the movie, which I can't wait to talk about.
Is it the turtle scene?
No.
Oh, okay.
No. Okay. Okay, so I wanted to say something that like kind of like really confuses me. People that consider this a slasher, which I'm fine if you do, because I still kind of like wonder what the difference is sometimes. Like it still confuses me. But why is this considered the original? Forget about Peeping Tom and like maybe Psycho if you consider that, but like why not Texas Chainsaw? Like what's the...
I don't think I consider Texas Chainsaw a slasher either.
Do people not though? Like I thought that's a very...
No, they do.
I thought people...
They do. So again, it's part of the debate. To me, the reason that I think I consider Halloween not necessarily the first to do a style like that, but Halloween is the one that set the precedent for what a slasher would become. The other movies before that, i.e. Black Christmas, Texas Chainsaw, Psycho, Peeping Tom, they were all films that were just about a killer. Yes, there was some slashing involved, but what would come out after Halloween? And you can see it, like there's a whole list of like how many slashers came out in between Halloween 1 and 2. It's a crazy long list of movies just in that 3-year time period. Even I think Friday the 13th, like the filmmakers behind that were on record as saying, let's try to make like a really cheap Halloween. And while we already talked about like John Carpenter obviously saying that, Black Christmas 74 is a huge influence on Halloween, and we've had that like discussion about it being like a spiritual sequel. There's just something to what came out after Halloween that, again, it followed all those tropes about sex, about drugs. The characters were sexualized. Like one of the reasons you watch Friday the 13th is the fun kills and the nudity. It's part of the fun, right? Whereas, again, this movie, and also like Texas Chainsaw, you brought up. Texas Chainsaw doesn't over-sexualize the characters. It's much more disturbing. The kills aren't gory. They're just very eerie and unsettling. The kill with Kirk in that film is just, the worst part about it is it's so instant, and it's his body twitching a little bit afterwards. There's not
you don't
anything,
like that,
dude. It's so unsettling, and it's and this movie has its fair share of unsettling stuff. But anyway, continue.
I guess my thing is like, let's say both of these are slashers. I just don't know why people say Black Christmas is the original slasher if it came out after Texas Chainsaw. It was like a couple months, right? Like
yeah.
I
guess
understand.
you'd have to keep in mind that depending on, you'd have to look at like shooting schedules. It's very possible that they made this film, they were filming it before Texas Chainsaw had even been released. So,
I forget, there was another movie that might have been shot before Texas Chainsaw, and I forget what it was, but I can't remember. But it was like, it was debated if like Tobe Hooper took a little too much from that, but I can't remember what the movie was.
Interesting.
I mean, yeah, let's get talking about this movie though.
Yes. So we didn't really talk about the plot of the film. The film is about it focuses on a group of sorority girls who, during the course of winter break, start to get terrorized and picked off one by one by an unknown killer who you find out, spoiler if you guys are listening, and spoilers for all 3 Black Christmas films. I'm going to put that out now so I don't have to repeat myself. We're going to talk about all 3 films, the plot, what happens, all that good stuff. But basically, you find out that the killer is inside of the house, and he makes a series of very, very disturbing phone calls to several of the characters in the film, all from inside the sorority. The film opens with him sneaking into the sorority, and might I add, in a very, very unsettling fashion, as again we are put into the killer's perspective in this film. And is Billy one of the scariest killers in a horror film?
Oh, I would put him up there. Like, the more I watch this, the more I'm like, each phone call I hear, like each time I watch this, it's just like, I forget the guy that did the voices, but he's really, really good at.
So nobody knows.
This. I thought that's when I read.
Part of the mystique is that some of it I think is Bob Clark, and I think there's actually a couple other voices. Like, the way that they got that sound, and the reason that Billy sounds different at different points is that they're different voices. Even the actor who plays Peter, I think is his name Keir or Care? It's like Keir. I think it's spelled. I never remember how to say his name. The actor who plays Peter, Jess's boyfriend, the guy from 2001: A Space Odyssey.
Yeah, I don't know how to say that.
Anyway, Peter. Sorry if you're listening. But no, Peter. They even I think asked him at one point, and he said that some of the dialogue sounds like stuff that they recorded for him during like auditions and stuff for the film. So there really is just multiple voices that they use throughout the film, and I think that's
I read that Nick Mancuso just did all the phone stuff.
Oh, interesting, because a lot of the stuff that I thought I had read was that some of it was Bob Clark, some of it was just other.
Unless they mixed it, unless like maybe Nick Mancuso did like the sounds, all like the weird sounds you hear, like the the grunts and the moans and like some of the voices.
No, I'm glad you brought up the phone calls, because they are easily one of the most disturbing parts of the film. Just the language that Billy uses. Sorry for my French folks, but he says things like "suck my big juicy cock," "let me lick that cunt." Like, it's very
pink cunt, like all this,
pink, like it's. And one of my favorite scenes in the film is actually the first phone call that the sorority gets. I also pointed out that the guy who ends up playing Santa, I think it's Phyllis's boyfriend. He's got the glasses, the afro, sort of.
Yeah.
When he's playing Santa, that's such a funny scene. When he's like, ho, 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 fuck. I wrote down in my notes that he's maybe the oldest looking college student I've ever seen in my entire life. The guy looks 40 years old. But the girls get a phone call, and it is just, again, so disturbing in what Billy is saying. And there's a great tight panning shot. And it starts out on the girls are like lined up around the phone, and it just pans across all of their faces slowly as they listen to this just extremely vulgar, unhinged voice on the end of the phone. And Margot Kidder ends up taking the phone and telling the creep to go fuck himself, or she says something of the sort. She's sort of like the sassy, fiery one of the group, which she plays excellently. Again, at least I think so. And this is like the most normal sounding you'll ever hear Billy in the entire film, but he just says quickly, "I'm gonna kill you," and then hangs up. Fucking sent shivers down my goddamn spine.
Yeah, you got my first note. I have like a huge note on, like, I didn't know if it was the first call or the second call, because don't they get like an initial call that you don't really hear anything, and then they get that call at the bottom of the stairs? But
I guess the first like legit phone call where they like listen to it.
But yeah, I wrote that you just have this great extreme close-up pan across everybody's reaction, and I love those reaction shots, and you just hear this like menace on the phone saying these wildly like sexual, creepy ass things, and just watching them listen to it was just so good. And then that that just switch into a normal "I'm going to kill you" it's such a good tone. I mean, even like the first shot, like where he's like climbing up and he goes into the attic, it's just really good like mood setting that this film does. And I don't get why I didn't like see how
You know
just
what,
like
though?
all the good components of this movie had.
To give you credit, I was the exact same way. I'm having a very similar experience with Black Christmas that I did with Texas Chainsaw, where the first time I saw Texas Chainsaw, I think I gave it like a 6 out of 10. And then on my recent rewatch, I gave it a 10 out of 10. I think it's one of the best horror films of all time.
Yeah.
The switch is crazy. And what it is because I fell in love with Halloween at such an early age that there was something just to the way that movie was shot and the tone and just how professional it felt, that I thought all horror movies needed to look like that, to be like well shot and well directed. So when you see a movie like Black Christmas, which again came out 4 years before Halloween, and obviously, like we said, very influential on it. But when I watched it, I think as like a high schooler or early college, it was just like, oh, well, where's all those great 35 millimeter Panavision wide shots with the Panaglide that they used in Halloween and all these like swooping tracking shots that you completely ignore how well shot Black Christmas is. Like I don't know if we've talked much about the visuals yet, but you mentioned the POV shot at the beginning when he's climbing up through the house. But there's just a ton of great shots in this movie. One thing that I love in particular is there's so many shots focused on windows that they either zoom in to people having a conversation inside of a house or a building, or it'll watch a character walk away from a high point up and it'll zoom in or out of the character through the window. And it just adds, there's just so much in terms of tone and atmosphere in this movie, and so much of it is because of the cinematography. And also, I think we're really starting to learn this about me, an amazing ability to use reservation with when music is used in this movie. I love how quiet and how patient they are with using the score in this movie, and it's very seldomly used, and I love that.
Wow. Yeah, this is just gonna be a new thing. Like, I'm just waiting for the critique on music if it's like how it's used when Jake talks about movies. I didn't even like I'm starting to think this guy hates music at this point.
That's the crazy part. I love music. I just, as I get older and I watch more films, I'm just impressed when, again, because we talked about it in one of our previous episodes, but just when you can have a great score but know when to use it and not overusing it, it's just really great.
Yeah, so I wanted to just talk about some shots that I really did love, but one of the first like parts I jumped at that did scare me was so his first kill is Claire, who goes to bed after like she gets upset by the phone call that they get. She goes to bed. This great tension built from inside the closet, looking through the bag that gets later used. I mean, the cover and poster of this movie is
fucking
Claire's
amazing
kill.
Poster, by the way. I love the poster of this movie.
Yeah, it's really, really good. But I mean, he kills her. He suffocates her with the bag. And then I forget when exactly it cuts from. Like, I actually have it. It's when Jess, before she goes to bed, she like knocks on Claire's door, and it just cuts to her rocking in that chair. But it's just such a startling like cut and shot. I don't even think there might have been like a little sound effect thrown in there that made me jump, but like just the shot itself just made me just like jolt a little bit. But to play off that, one of my favorite shots is when her dad eventually is supposed to pick her up the next day and realizes that she's not there. So they kind of do this investigation. That's what catapults the cops' involvement with this. But the dad goes to the sorority house and meets the house mother, Miss Mac or Mrs. Mac.
Mrs. Mac.
Yeah. But the shot I like is when they leave together and it's just a overhead shot of them getting in the car, and it just slowly goes out, and it's basically from like Claire still in the bag the rocking chair, rocking next to the window. It's just like such a good like I don't know. It's such a normal shot until it just goes out and it just reveals what you're like pretty much standing next to, like the view you're getting. But another one of my favorite series of shots is probably like my favorite scene in the movie, and it's Barb's kill.
Oh, okay.
Barb's kill is so good with the intercutting with the children carolers. Mm-hmm. Oh man, just having what is it? "O Come All Ye Faithful." That is such it's such a pretty like Christmas song. But I mean, the kids singing it gives a little bit of a creepy vibe. I mean, kids can be scary sometimes, and they're just singing it. And I don't know, there's like just shots of their faces singing it, and they just have this blank face when they're singing. But it's another one of, I think, one of the big posters of the movie is when you see him like holding up the unicorn head, and it just like shows his eye. That's like the Barb kill, and just those shots of him like just going down at her, and you get those close shots of her hand like hitting like the glass. I don't know. I really liked it. I think that compared with the song, the Christmas song over top of it, compared with like Jess watching the caroling, like smiling, it's such a good like shot by shot, like scene by scene, like next to each other, back and forth. It's my favorite scene.
I am so glad that you said that, because it's also my favorite.
Oh, nice.
I wrote in my notes specifically. I was looking for it while you were divulging that, and I wrote, Margot Kidder's death sequence interspliced with the caroling kids is actually masterful filmmaking. Like,
yeah, it's top notch like horror scenes.
Dude, and like honestly, so many of the kills in this movie are some of my favorite and most terrifying kills. And it goes back to like what Texas Chainsaw does well too. The lack of gore is sometimes even worse than like having like a really gory, bloody scene. Like, yeah, that can be fun. It could be, I think it works in movies like Scream, where like the blood does add to some of the scare factor. But there's just something to how the scenes in this film are directed where a character does die. And some of them are a little more over the top, like, Mrs. Mack's death later on in the film, when right before she's about to leave, she goes upstairs and she hears something in the attic, and she goes up, and it's one of those attics where like the entrance is like a little square kind of trapdoorish. So she opens it up and turns around, and you just, from Billy's POV, you just see him holding a crane hook, and it just swings, and it's like a swooping camera movement, and just clocks her. And it doesn't linger on it, but it's just so matter of fact in the moment. You brought up Claire's death, the first kill of the film. And even that one, it's so abrupt. It's so instant. It's not a 2-minute long scene of Billy choking her out. It's the second he wraps the bag around her head, you see her kind of gasp for air through the plastic bag. And it lasts just a couple of seconds, then it's a harsh cut. And it just, what it does in this film is it in a way that like a film like maybe some of the Scream movies, as much as I love them, there is always a sense that the character might get away, even if they get stabbed 30 times like some characters do in those movies. There's always a sense that like, okay, they may get away. In this film, every time Billy gets near a character or is going into a scene where obviously a kill is being set up, which they do a great subversion of with the biggest red herring in the film, which is Peter's character. But even then, like, there's some great sequences with that. Like, obviously, one of the things we've harped on is how the film uses POV shots and putting you into Billy's perspective. What's great is there's a scene where you can't really tell if it's POV or if it's just handheld camera as it's walking down the stairs towards Jess. Mm-hmm. And then, so you're not sure. Is it somebody else? Is it just the camera? Is it just a shot? Is it Billy? And it turns out to be Peter, who through multiple scenes in this film is obviously being painted as the person. And I don't know if this is crazy or if you felt this way too, but Whether or not Peter was Billy, he obviously was not, as we see at the end of the film. Whether or not he is or not, I think he was going to kill her. I think he was going to kill Jess. He was very unhinged as well.
Let me just say this. There's like a couple things about the movie where it's like, all right. And that's one of them where sometimes, these horror movies play a little too much into the red herring where they have that shot and you're convinced it's Billy behind her. And you got to ask yourself, all right, why is this guy like creeping up behind her? Like, how about you just say her name before you get down the steps? You're like slowly approaching her. Some of that stuff that gets like, that's done a lot. And maybe it wasn't done a lot then, but like I don't know. I think sometimes just playing with the audience too much is a little bit like, all right, you're trying to steer me one way a little too much. But that's like one scene in the movie that, it's not like a major thing.
No, you are right. They do it a couple times. It's not even just through cinematography, but obviously, like, again, he's a very intentional red herring. So you find out through this film, and this is where, even though it was not Bob Clark's intention, a lot of fans of this film, a lot of modern horror historians and film historians have said that this is a very feminist, pro-women film, even if it's kind of subtle. And a lot of that has to do with the relationship between Jess and Peter, as Jess divulges to Peter that she is pregnant, but she plans on having an abortion. Peter is obviously very upset with it, as he's going through a lot of stress right now. He's in a piano conservatorship. I don't know what it's called. The conservatory, whatever. He's in this piano conservatory, this music school at the college, and he has a terrible audition after finding out this news. Completely blows it, ends up smashing the piano, which is wild.
Is that his piano?
No, absolutely not. That's the school's piano. That's thousands of dollars in damage, and. Yeah, obviously it plays into it as John Saxon is in the film, who plays the chief of police. Later in the film, he goes to investigate, sees the smashed piano, as even he starts to suspect Peter. But after this whole conversation, Peter's like, no, let's start a family. I'm going to leave the piano school and I want you to have the baby. And she flat out is like, no, I'm having an abortion. There's nothing you can do or say to change my mind. Why are you quitting piano school? When we first started dating, we both had dreams. We both had ambitions. I'm not just going to completely give that up. That's not what I wanted in my life. And it's, as we'll discuss a little later, as another Black Christmas film tries to go for a sort of feminist, empowering women message. One handles it really well and the other does not.
You got to handle these things with subtlety. Yes. And this movie does. It's nothing is like thrown in your face and obvious. It's just like, I don't know. It just feels minimal but effective.
Yeah.
And I'm glad you brought that scene up because I have that written down that like whether or not Bob Clark viewed this as like a bad script and just wanted like good actors, I thought this scene was actually had some good dialogue and it was exactly that. And it's a very like nice dramatic scene that where you get to like just connect with these characters a little bit more. And yeah, it's her just telling him, like he's kind of just like, all right, well, I'm not doing this. I failed my my performance. Let's get married. And she's like, listen, just because you've like given up, just because you've done this, it doesn't mean I give up all my ambitions just to do this for you. Like, and I love that she brings up when we met, this is how things were. We both had things we wanted in life. Just because your plans have changed doesn't mean mine have to also. And I just love that. It feels very mature. And I know that was a very like, I mean, I don't really know, but I wonder how common, I know it wasn't, but I wonder how common it was for like people to decide on that stuff and get abortions, because I know that was very like taboo back then.
Well, you got to think like even now to this day the discussion around abortion is very heated on both sides of the argument. So for this film to 1974, 50 years ago, this year is going to be the anniversary. Wow.
Yeah, I wonder if they're going to have it.
We didn't even plan that out. 50-year anniversary. Let's go. Look at us nailing it without even trying.
Like the Paul Rudd gif. Look at us.
But yeah, no, this film just does so much. One thing that I love is just, again, like the reservation with music. But one of my notes early on in the film is when he is sneaking around and climbing up the house. There's just a great attention to sound design. The mix is great too, with the heavy breathing of Billy, the little kind of noises he has, and also just like the diegetic music inside the
which
film.
Is very, very Halloween-y, like that heavy breathing inside the
Oh yeah, absolutely. Again, there's no like, Halloween is my favorite film. I love it. I think it's just an all-time classic of the genre, and it means a lot to me personally. But there's no denying, like, Black Christmas had, like, even down to the ending of the film with like the killer supposedly being dead, but getting away and disappearing into the night. And one interesting thing is, so not to jump ahead too much, but we've kind of talked about this film non-chronologically anyway, but the end of the film sort of ends with Olivia Hussey. She gets attacked by Billy, and it's very, very creepy. It's sort of Leatherface-esque, the way that when he's chasing her, he's just making these crazy, wild, animalistic screaming noises, like "Arr, arr," as he's chasing her, and he grabs her hair and almost gets her, and she's able to lock herself in the basement, and that's when the character, Billy, quote unquote, goes away, and Peter arrives.
Dude, when he's pounding that door, even that is horrifying. Like really, really, really scary.
Yeah, like, as much as I love how Michael Myers is sort of like a silent stalker, and there's something to just him walking towards you in like a very precise Terminator-esque fashion, there's something just wildly unhinged and terrifying about the way Billy is just banging on that door and wailing like a beast. It's fucking horrifying. But Peter shows up, and that's when Olivia Hussey at this point is terrified. She's starting to think it's Peter. This is already after she's discovered all of her friends brutally murdered, and she's just in a distressed state, and Peter starts walking towards her. It cuts away to John Saxon arriving on the scene. They enter the basement, and Olivia Hussey has fainted and has killed Peter. And they have all now at this point believed Peter to be the one who was killing all of the sorority girls. But then the end happens, and they leave her in her bed, and it does a very slow pan around the room and through the house and up the stairs into the attic, where apparently they still haven't found Claire's body. It's still there, but they found everybody else, and it goes towards the window, and it zooms out of the window, and it's just terrifying. But there's a theory that every time Billy kills, he makes a call. And the last thing we see is this wide shot of the sorority house with not Olivia Hussey, but Claire still in the rocking chair, still bag over her head as it zooms out. And you see the cop standing outside, and the phone inside rings. So you know that Billy is still in the house, lurking in the walls, left alone with Olivia Hussey's character, and then you hear a phone call. So does he kill her? Is that how it really ends?
He's also humming, right? Don't you hear him humming as you're like doing the pan up to the attic?
I think so. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I'm confused when people are. There's like some debate of like still people saying like, was it Peter? And I'm like, it wasn't. What do you mean? Like, I could see if you never heard the humming, and it was just like a tracking shot through like the house, and then you heard a phone. Well, if you heard the phone, I mean, the phone call would be like still ambiguous enough. But the fact that you hear him humming, it's like, yeah, he's still like, no, it wasn't Peter. Yeah. But I guess when I was like watching reviews, people were like saying Billy, but they're like, I'm gonna say Billy, but there's some people that like, don't think it is Billy.
I guess it is like left up to the imagination and supposed to be a tad bit ambiguous, but the way I read it was, it's Billy still out there. He kills Jess and makes another phone call. Which again, maybe one of the best final shots in a horror film ever. That wide shot of the sorority house, it's fucking amazing. One thing I wanted to ask you about is how you feel about the famous eye in the wall shot.
Oh, I mean, I love all those I love just the little pieces you get of Billy that you never fully get them. Mm-hmm. And that's just another one. I mean, Do people not like that? I think it's fucking terrifying.
It's iconic. It's
Yeah.
Now imagine that eye shot, and imagine if you saw that 60 times in a movie.
Just imagine, I can't wait to imagine so many things in the next movies. I kind of like the barb shot a little bit more, where you get like you see like his silhouette and you just see like that corner of his eye.
Yeah.
I kind of like that a little bit more. But let me tell you, man, I want to talk a little bit about Nash. We can't go without talking about Nash, the sergeant who's just like the
Good
fucking
old
joke.
Nash. He had one job.
Yeah.
I hope John Saxon actually killed him. He says in the movie, Nash, if you mess this up, I'll kill you.
Yeah.
And I hope he killed him after that.
But like, here's the thing. Here's why I feel a little sorry for Nash. Because like this guy is doing what he's asked. And he's like, listen, Jess, or whatever he calls her. I just need you to get out of the house. And that's it. And she's like, okay, let me get my friends. He's like, no. Like that.
No. You're misremembering. He fucks up. He fucks up. All he had to do, Josh, was say, Jess, just get up and leave the house. That's all he had to say. And instead he goes, Jess, is anybody else in the house with you?
Oh.
And then she goes, oh, my, Phyllis and I forget the other character's name. But all he had to do was just keep calm. And but all it takes is like one or two of her being like, but what about my friends? And then he immediately caves and goes, oh, but Jess, the killer's in the house. That's where the calls are coming from. He gives up so fucking easily. So I don't feel sorry for Nash. Also, Nash is a fucking idiot throughout the entire movie.
Oh, no,
He's a bumbling fool.
Listen, this scene is funny, but I don't know.
He doesn't know what fellatio means.
Yeah, is that like, he's like too dumb to be like the sergeant.
Is he a sergeant?
I thought he was the sergeant.
Jesus Christ. I thought he was just like a deputy or something.
Yeah,
that's concerning for that police station.
I think I read he's like the sergeant.
Jesus.
But that scene was really funny when you just get when he's just like, John Saxon kind of like plays it really good too. He's just like looking at him with like a smirk, and he's just like, fellatio, and you just hear everybody just cackling in the back, just like waiting for him to get the fucking punchline.
It's something dirty, isn't it? And he's like, yeah, it's something dirty. Also, thank you for bringing up John Saxon. I love John Saxon. I love seeing him in this movie. I'm not sure if you were aware or if you read it, but he was actually a last minute addition to the film. Apparently they had originally, I forget his name, but they had hired this veteran actor, very well regarded, very well respected in the industry. And apparently when when he arrived in Toronto after the flight, it took him nearly an hour to put on his coat because he was so old and was showing early signs of dementia. And so Bob Clark and I forget someone else, I think one of the producers was like, no, we can't do this. Like, this is also just not fair to this guy. And I guess they called his agent and chewed the agent out. Like, why the fuck would you send him out here in Toronto in the freezing cold, which I saw in the behind the scenes thing, you had mentioned that this film kind of turns into a police procedural at one point. Like, it's still very much a sort of murder mystery, maybe slasher, maybe not slasher, depending on who you ask. But it turns into a police procedural at one point. And the scene when they're all standing outside, ready to have the search party because you find out that a high school teenager went missing earlier that day, who they unfortunately end up finding in a just really, really tragic and heartbreaking scene. Again, mature and very well handled.
I thought she was young. I thought she was like 12 or 13.
Oh, I thought they said it was a high school girl. Maybe it was middle school. 13 would make sense. But and that's another thing that I love is it's left ambiguous. Did Billy kill this young girl, or is it just a coincidence? Now, you could argue that the first call in the film is after he killed this 13-year-old girl. So that does kind of align with what we know about Billy, which is very little. Because, why have a mystery behind a character when you can thoroughly and behemothly explain their backstory for 40 minutes? Unrelated. But anyway, I brought up the whole search party scene because they said while filming that it was below 10 degrees while filming that scene. So imagine dragging like an old man out there who can barely put his coat on by himself. And so then last minute they said, hey, John Saxon, we're filming in like 2 days. Can you leave today? And he said yes, because John Saxon's the man. And he's great in this and in Nightmare on Elm Street and in Enter the Dragon. So,
which one do you like him more, in this or Nightmare on Elm Street?
Oh, that's tough. He's kind of extremely irresponsible and dumb in Nightmare on Elm Street, so I think his character in Black Christmas is a lot more intelligent and smart. The only bad decision he makes is leaving Nash to make that phone call to Jess.
Yeah, and I feel like I don't know, I feel like there's too much certainty of it being Peter. Like, I don't know.
Well, look at it from his perspective. Like, we as an audience have seen all this other stuff, but from his perspective, he sees Peter leave distressed after the argument with Jess. They're listening to the phone call when he's like, sounds like Billy over the phone, and he's like, oh, you can't get rid of the baby. You can't get rid of the baby. Like, he sounds like Billy over the phone. He goes to the school. He sees the destroyed piano. Like, he has a lot of reason to believe that Peter is the killer. I
don't believe him or the police wouldn't like search the house, or they wouldn't just leave her alone in there. I get they said that, like, we have to go. I forget where they had to go.
Are you talking about at the end after Peter's dead? Like, just leaving her there?
They were going to stay with her, and then something got them out of the house to, like, investigate or whatever. But it would be weird. I don't buy into, like, them not leaving someone there with her.
Well, you see, you tend to think that, you know, police officers are smarter and more intelligent. And then you find out stories like one of Jeffrey Dahmer's victims running down the street with a bleeding asshole and being found by cops, and them just letting him go back to Jeff Dahmer because the guy couldn't speak English. So then you start to go, this is kind of plausible.
I guess John Saxon, I expect a little bit more from his character. He seemed pretty...
That's fair. Like, he does seem like a rather intelligent
What about the other girls? They know that they were in there. So wouldn't you search the house for the bodies before, like...
That is where, I guess, if you're going to start to draw criticisms in this movie, the ending... albeit a very creepy conclusion to the film, especially that final wide shot of the sorority house as the phone rings and it cuts to the credits. Excellent stuff in terms of just horror and creating that atmosphere and ending on a really strong note. But there is a little bit of illogical stuff, like from the way that it's shot, it looks like you can easily see Claire in the window, which any person passing the street would be able to see her. Why would they not take Olivia to the Olivia Hussey's character Jess to the hospital? When I first saw the film, I thought they were in a hospital, and then it cuts away, and they're still
it's all right.
in the
You'll
house.
Get one. You'll get a hospital at some point.
Speaking of that, I guess there's a really, really great split diopter shot in this film that I thought was excellent during one of the phone calls. I always love seeing a split diopter shot. It's just the film it just has a
drunk
lot of
kid, right?
Yeah. It just, the movie in general, just really creative shot composition. One thing that I really appreciated is so many of the shots in this film are claustrophobic, but in a really, really well done way. Like, there's not many shots where there's not something dominating the foreground and background of a shot. So every frame is very busy, and it just, again, it lends to the whole kind of one of the most terrifying aspects of the film is just the fact that the killer is in the house the entire time. It's that very real fear of what's lurking, ready to kill you, being in your home, like where you live and go to sleep. It's
even when Nash tells her, he's in the house the whole time, but that delivery and reaction just kind of like amplifies the fact that he's in there. Not that you really like forgot it, but I don't know. It's just like you feel just almost as scared as she probably does first hearing it. It's, I don't know. It's really good.
Is what makes her kind of final girl moment, her decision to go back in and try to save her friends. Like, I think she's the
fire poker.
Yeah, like, we can talk all the live long day about the Sidney Prescotts and the Laurie Strodes of horror, but I think Jess in this movie is maybe, if not the most underrated final girl in a horror film. Like, she just, again, she has so much agency in the film. She stands her ground morally, personally, emotionally. She never backs down. And when it really comes down to it, and you can make, your criticisms about it being a dumb decision to go back in and to try to save her friends, but it's brave, and you buy it. And it really works. It's really well handled, in my opinion.
Yeah, and she still kind of keeps this like innocence, but like I don't know, but she's not entirely, but like she never seems, I don't know, like you could question, well, I don't know. I mean, I guess that depends where you stand, but like, I don't know. She doesn't, I feel like the final girl almost feels sometimes a little too, I don't know, like angelic, and I don't know, she kind of like keeps that without it feeling a little heavy-handed,
Yeah, I agree, and I think it's just because they do give her enough in this movie. Like, as much as I enjoy, and I'm not even saying I prefer Jess over Sydney or Laurie, but just in the context of comparing them all together, they do something in their own right. Like, Laurie Strode is really great at that innocence. Sydney Prescott, she's, in my opinion, probably the most badass of the bunch. Like, she's the one who genuinely fights the person trying to kill her. And again, Olivia Hussey, I think the performances in this movie are rather strong for quote unquote a slasher movie across the board, whether it's Peter, Jess. Again, Margot Kidder is a standout, and the only reason earlier when you brought up a scene by her before telling me what it was is she has this, one of her kind of character traits is she's one of two raging alcoholics in this movie, the other being Mrs. Mack, who is the biggest booze hound I have ever seen in a movie.
That was fucking disgusting when she rinsed her mouth out the tooth. Like, why? How about you just rinse it with water and then take a sip of the alcohol? Alcohol is not. That could have been cheap alcohol.
Yeah, she just wastes the alcohol. Like, she just takes a swish of the.
She's not even drinking it. So what is that? Oh, that
I just love though. So apparently that character was based on Bob Clark's aunt, who constantly and would frequently hide booze throughout their house, which I think is funny. Hey, they say draw and write what you know. So, but no, Margot Kidder is also an alcoholic in the film, and there's a point in the film, and this is when she has that sort of breakdown, and is that kind of drop of a dime moment that I brought up earlier about certain people who drink. And it starts out with her, and this is just psychotic on multiple levels, but she starts talking to Claire's father, who still is very stressed and very upset about his daughter having gone missing. And Margot Kidder is super drunk, super shit-faced, and starts going into this story about how there's this certain species of turtles that can fuck for 3 days straight. And she makes this funny joke where she says, "I'm lucky if I get 30 seconds. And she says, "You know how I know this? I went to the zoo and I watched them." And it's a really weird and uncomfortable scene. It's a little funny at first, and then it starts to get sad, and then her entire demeanor changes and shifts, like, again, at the drop of a dime. And she's like, "Oh, well, I know what's gonna happen. You're all gonna blame me when Claire shows up dead. I know, it's what we're all thinking, so why don't we just come out and say it?" And it's just that quick shift. And again, Margot Kidder just does a really great job at delivering really realistic drunk acting, in my opinion. But it's just little moments like that add to the characters. And that's something that, again, when I watch a lot of slashers, the characters don't often feel like real people. When I watch this film, it really feels like all of the characters are real people. They're not characters. They're not cartoonish. Maybe Mrs. Mack a little bit. They definitely, like, again, the swishing of the alcohol is just, we get it. She's an alcoholic.
Nash is definitely cartoonish.
Yeah. Like, they definitely
he's just
do
a fool. Like, he's not like... He's
a believable idiot. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not too over the top, but again, the way they handle a lot of characters, a lot of dialogue in the film, they always feel like real, authentic people. And I think it goes a long way in, you don't want these people to die. Like, a lot of them, they're just really nice, sweet people. Jess is a nice person. Phyllis seems sweet. They're not obnoxious. They're just smart, intelligent women. And I'm not sure if you read this, but something that Bob Clark really wanted to make clear in this film was he said like every film that he saw before this that tried to capture teenagers and college kids never did it with a shred of believability or realism. And he wanted to make this feel like the character. Yeah, he felt like
any movie or any horror movie.
Maybe it was specifically horror, but he said that they always paint kids as really dumb, stupid, and just complete bumbling idiots. And he didn't want to portray his characters like that. So he gave them, again, just a lot of agency. And I guess it's kind of my concluding thoughts on the film. I'm sure we can go back and forth, and unless you have more notes, we could probably move on. But again, maturity, really strong tone in this film. So much to appreciate about it.
Yeah, I agree that like the characters are definitely stronger. They're not just like idiot kids. However, I don't believe Bob Clark for a second. There's no way you never saw a movie before this movie where they like what you're the only person that handled the high school kids with a little bit more intelligence. I don't know. Come on, get real. But
yeah,
I will say something I didn't like about this movie.
Yeah, go for it.
I didn't like the dad.
You don't?
I think no,
really?
And here's why. Because I did at first, and I was like, oh, this is a good addition. Like this could really bring some like emotional stakes to this, and have you sympathize a little bit more. This guy does nothing, and I get you're going through a little bit of like trauma and sadness. He says absolutely nothing from his first scene, and there's moments where he like, or I guess after the Mrs. Max scene, there's moments where he looks like he's gonna. The guy just never opens his mouth. There's a scene where Nash takes the call and he kind of dismisses it, and the dad overhears it. He looks like he's gonna like go and confront him, and he walks up to him, doesn't say anything. He just looks at him. I'm like, buddy, speak. Let me like. I was sympathizing with you when I realized you were in this movie, and you're looking for your daughter that just got killed. Show a little bit more sadness. I get you have like a blank, there's like a blankness because you're maybe still like processing the possibility, but I wish we got more emotion from him. There's a weird moment at the end where he's in the room. All of a sudden he goes into shock out of nowhere. He's like sitting there fine. And then when they leave, he just goes into shock. Rewatch that again. It's very like out of nowhere.
Huh. Yeah, I guess I'll have to rewind that and check that out again. That's
even the scene with Barb. He doesn't say a thing, and but like he doesn't even show that much emotion. It's just blank. Where I'm like, I can't tell if this is purposeful or he's just kind of like one note, So I didn't like him. Just because I saw potential there, and it didn't like live up to what I thought I was going to get from him.
No, I definitely see where that criticism could come from. I don't know if I necessarily agree. I actually kind of like his more understated performance. And sure, I guess probably they could have given him a lot more to do. And it would have been maybe nice to see a little bit more emotion out of him. But I also think that so much of this movie takes place in such a short span of time that, again, I do think a lot of it is him just processing. Like at first, it's just like an unsettling, like, I don't know where my kid is. I was supposed to meet her. She's not there. I don't know what to do. And then after the scene in the park, when they do the search party and they find the young girl that was missing and they find her dead in the park, I think it's at that point where he knows he's not going to find his daughter. And
in that moment,
it works for me.
I get the focus isn't him, and I'm not even saying like I want like 5 minutes dedicated to him like breaking down. I don't want that, but I want a little bit more like care into this investigation. Like even that small moment, if you just gave this guy a little bit more dialogue when Nash just dismisses a call that sounds like it could involve his daughter, and you walk up to him, how about you just say a couple lines that indicate that you're pretty passionate about like what could have happened to your daughter, instead of like just doing nothing the whole time. Or when you see the girl dead, what could have been like impactful is like just show him, I don't even need to see like a whole breakdown, but show him with a little bit more sadness. He has the same expression the whole time.
I think he has a good reaction in that. It's not overly dramatic. It's not over the top. It feels like, sure, there are some people who, if they saw that and they were in that situation and probably knew that at that point that their kid was probably dead. Like, that's the insinuation, is like, this is what fate awaits my daughter. But there are some people who would break down and have like an emotional response and go that route. But I also think there are some people who would have his similar reaction, to where it kind of just breaks them. It's like that moment of realization where there really is no hope. And I think that's what this movie does really well, is a lot of it is understated. It is subtle, whether it's the, feminist pro-women kind of message that, whether intended or not, is how a lot of people receive it. And, people always say with art, it's not about intent, it's all about reception. So, whether Bob Clark intended to do that, but a lot of it, like, again, we did talk about how Mrs. Mack, probably the most cartoonish character, but even then, like, you brought up Nash, I think is a believable idiot. Like, it's not like he's
it just ain't believable that he's a sergeant.
Yeah, that's probably the most, which I didn't realize until you brought that up. But no, what I think this movie does, again, is just a lot of tone. And there's a really great scene that I guess his reaction sort of reminds me of, and it's in Halloween 2, the original from 1981, where, because in the original film, Laurie's friend Annie Brackett is killed, and you never get to see her father's reaction to it. He's the police chief, but just in the film, you never see his response to finding her. And in the second film, because it's a direct continuation of the first story, you actually get the moment where he's told that his daughter dies, and he doesn't break down, he doesn't cry. He has this little crack in his voice, but he just has one little line of dialogue where he says, "I have to go notify my wife before someone else tells her." Yeah. And it's really sad, but
that's much better.
I don't think I need that from his character, though. I think it's just that moment where, again, we didn't talk about it too much, but like, we did bring up the tone and atmosphere of this movie. There's such a solemn, sad, depressing tone to the entire film. Like, other than the creep factor, there's a real sense of dread and just general unhappiness in the way that everything is presented. It never feels like the characters are going to get out of this situation in a great way. And again, I just think a lot of that is just the subtlety. And I don't know. I get where your criticisms. I'm not even saying they're invalid. I guess it worked for me.
Yeah. I'm pretty much done. I have this one thing that I noticed. This could be like a technical error or something, but in the scene where Phil is talking to Jess, I want you to rewatch that scene. There's a shadow behind Phil against the wall.
Yes.
You noticed that?
I caught that. I think it's intentional.
Okay.
I think it's because they do it not directly like that, but this film heavily plays with shadow a lot in the movie, whether it's just like Billy's shadow, when you get those POV shots. I definitely think that was intentional. Like, it was to make it seem like something was in the background.
I was like, am I just seeing stuff right now?
You're not alone. It creeps me the fuck out, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that was good. I like that part. I'm ready to go into 2006. I know you're not, but
unfortunately, I'm just looking at. I didn't. We talked about the cinematography, the shots themselves, but I thought the lighting in this movie was really great. There's a really great sort of shot, just hones in on that Christmassy tone, where it's a shot of Jess. And there's a Christmas tree behind her, and she's in the sorority house, and it's like illuminating her on one side, like it's backlighting her, and to the other side there's the fire from the fire pit, and you get this just beautiful little orange glow. But again, the scene outside of the color is just draped in dread and depressing tone. Yeah. It's really well handled. We talked about the ending a little bit, but the whole basement is one of the creepiest looking basements I've seen in a horror film.
So many narrow passages in it. Holy shit.
Again, there's so much about this movie that's just very claustrophobic. I loved it. I love it. But one of the only other things I mentioned is that just the idea of the killer always being in the house adds a layer of tension and suspense to every single scene, whether it's intended to be scary or not, because you know that Billy is always lurking.
Yeah. So that must really help the 2006 one then, right? Because it's the same.
All right. Moving on to Black Christmas 2006. Directed by Glenn Morgan, budget of $9 million. made 21.5 mil at the global box office, but also made another $30.1 million in DVD sales, a very, very low 14% critical score on Rotten Tomatoes, and a 22 Metacritic score.
Nice. Good. Love it. So Jake, I mean, this one really took a lot out of you, it sounds like.
Guys, if you've been listening to this podcast for, the last couple episodes, some of the Harry Potter movies, albeit enjoyable, were taxing. They were long, a lot of them are 2.5 hours. We watched 4 Halloween Town movies. I'm a 26-year-old man who watched 4 Disney Channel original movies in the span of 1 week. And it wasn't until Black Christmas 06 that I felt the need to text Josh and apologize, but also thank him for doing this with me. Black Christmas 2006 is one of the most unenjoyable movie experiences that I have ever had, maybe ever in my entire life.
This was pretty tough. I remember I saw this when I was a kid, probably like 12 years old maybe. Didn't like it then. I watched it a couple years ago as like with a group of friends, thinking like, yeah, I know this shit is bad, but it's gonna be fun because we like to watch bad movies. No, it wasn't. And this time I was watching it, and it was like, I was like, okay, I gotta be like an hour 10 in. I'm like 20 minutes in. This is over an hour left, and I'm just like, holy shit, man, please get me through this. Like it is so fucking boring. And just, we're lending our hands to the possible score that this is going to get. But my God, is this just
a fucking piece of shit movie.
This is just unnecessary in like everything they do. And half the runtime is dedicated to a nice backstory of Billy, right? Which really helps his character. You connect with him, you get a little sympathy for him. Shit, man. Like, I didn't know.
He also looks like a Simpson.
Yeah, what? I mean, I know he has a skin condition. Is that really how vibrant it is?
I looked it up. It looks like they definitely
he's
turned
glowing.
up the yellow.
He is glowing.
He has, for anyone wondering, the character of Billy in this movie has jaundice, which is a liver disease in which it turns your skin a shade of yellow.
Why does he have it?
However, because you got to flesh out your villains, man. You can't have mystery.
You know who fleshed him out?
His mother. You know that iconic line in Jesus Christ. You know that iconic line in Batman Begins where Tom Wilkinson's character says, "You always fear what you don't understand."
Yeah.
The filmmakers of Black Christmas 06 do not subscribe to that theory because they want you to very, very, very much understand your... Again, guys, spoilers for these films. If you're still listening for some reason, maybe you only listened to the first part because you've only seen the original, and so spoilers for Black Christmas 06. Killers in this film, because you know what's scarier than one killer is 2. As... one thing we didn't really mention in the first film, Billy makes a series of calls. Also, guys, there's no need to explain the plot in this movie. It's the exact same plot as the first one, except there's 2 killers now. They expand on Billy's backstory, and instead of Claire's father coming to meet her, it's her estranged sister.
Mm-hmm. You know what's scarier than 2 killers?
Oh.
100. I'll just leave it at that. But yeah.
Oh, I hate these movies. Yes. But this movie, I just don't. These are going to be short, guys. We spent a lot of time on Black Christmas 74 because that's a good movie. But you find out, okay, so we didn't really mention in the first film that Billy, when making certain phone calls, mentions the name Agnes a couple of times, and it never really means anything. Because you never find out anything about Billy. You don't even know if Billy is the killer's real name. It's just what they say on the phone. And, well, not in this movie, because in this movie, Billy... Okay, I'm going to try to tackle this with a little bit of nuance. trigger warning for anybody, I guess, who has had any form of sexual assault, as this film tackles that. As when Billy is a kid, his mother rapes him and gets pregnant with a baby girl named Agnes. And then when Agnes is like 12 years old, Billy, who still lives in the attic, and they never really explain how he gets food or if he gets fed, but Billy rips out Agnes's eye and also proceeds to kill his mom and her mom's boyfriend, and then bake her skin into cookies.
Yeah, flesh cookies. Can't forget the flesh cookies for Christmas, Jake. Yeah, what makes him become a cannibal? Like, there's no lead up to that. So yeah, guys. I mean, Agnes makes Billy a brother and a father at the same time. But then they partner up, right? Like, he gouges her eye out for some reason, but leaves it at that. He doesn't kill her, but then recruits her, and they become like a duo in the killings, I guess. So yeah. So I mean, this film starts off with, oh, let me tell you, this guy loved you. I mean, guys, if you thought Jake and I liked the suffocating bag kill, no one loved it more than this director. This guy did it like 6 times in this movie.
Dude, you know what this fucking... I'm sorry, I don't want to be mean to the director. I'm not going to bully him. I have a really funny quote by him that I'll tell you in a second because it's going to make you laugh. What did the director, Mr. Glenn Morgan, not understand that in the first film, part of the effect of the bag is that you could see Claire's face through it?
Yeah.
In this film, it's like a dark black bag.
Yeah, it's like a grocery bag.
So you can't see her expression as she suffocates to death. And we didn't really talk about it too much, but they cut back to Claire. There's actually a really great shot in the first film, the original, of Billy rocking the chair. It's like a POV shot, rocking the chair as Claire is dead in it. It's and then later on she has like a doll in her hands. It's every time they cut back to Claire, it really just it makes my stomach crawl a little bit. It's like it's very upsetting. But regardless, Black Christmas 06. I want to get to that quote that I found because it's pretty funny, and I think you're gonna get a kick out of it.
Yeah, while you're finding it, let me just cite that the second kill of this movie has like 20 cuts in the span of like 5 seconds. This guy cuts the shot like, oh my god, it's so much.
The editing in this movie is absolutely atrocious. I found it. Okay. It says, after the box office failure of Willard from 2003, which was Glenn Morgan's previous film, Glenn Morgan stated that if this film were to bomb, it would be the end of his directing career. This film would be a critical and financial failure, grossing only $21 million against a $9 million budget and receiving an abysmal 14% on Rotten Tomatoes. Unfortunately, proving his fears correct, because except for a few episodes of the newer seasons of The X-Files, he has not directed a film since. God. 45 of 47 people found that interesting. You know who became the 46th?
You.
Me. That's the only time I've ever liked a trivia fact on IMDb.
This film weirdly has a following. There's like quite a few people that see some like I don't know. There's just people that enjoy this, which is weird because like if you want to cite some things about the movie where you see like maybe some good intentional directing, I personally don't. There might be a couple shots that were like, yeah, sure, that wasn't bad, but I don't know. I've heard like the Weinsteins like they overproduced it and that kind of blocked his vision, I guess. But I don't know. I don't buy it. Everything in this movie is not like there's nothing because he also wrote it and it's not so yeah.
Well, the what I read about the Weinsteins, I guess, was they contributed more towards they wanted the film to be gorier, so that's why Hey guys, if you liked the shot of Billy's eye in the first film, a very subtle one-off shot that adds a lot of creep. It's a really iconic horror shot. It's excellent, super well delivered. This film, again, like they just decided to run with the whole Billy and Agnes thing. This film felt the need to have about 40 different shots involving eyes, whether that was eyes being pulled out, eyes being put back
screensavers.
Screensavers, lot of eye.
You know what my favorite
usage.
thing about this movie was when I realized they're living in the thinnest house I've ever seen. I mean, I don't know how they haven't broken through these floors, the walls. If you think about leaning on it, it's gonna like cave in. This guy, Billy, somehow pokes his little finger and like through the wall, and it makes one of the thumbtacks holding a poster fall out.
Well, no, it's not Billy. It's Agnes.
Oh, right, Agnes. Sorry. Okay, it's you know that
Billy's too busy escaping the hospital. Fun fact, Josh: Billy tries to escape the hospital every year around Christmas because he wants to be home on Christmas.
But, like,
they don't put extra security around his room.
Do you know how thin a thumbtack is? But I can see the eye through that hole in the wall.
Yeah.
It's fucking ridiculous. She pokes her finger through the tile. Her eye is her eye might as well be the tile. That's how like thin this flooring is, apparently.
Also, why is she built like a professional linebacker? She looks like fucking Ray Lewis.
Who? Well,
guys, if you liked this, if you like this movie, I get it. I get the appeal.
You do?
It's not. No, but
right.
I don't want to be. Listen. If you guys like it, I get it. I get it. Sort of. I don't think it's good. It's not for me. I much prefer the original. And maybe if I watched this when I was young and had some nostalgia for it, I would like this more.
I watched it when I was young.
Yeah,
I hated it. But hey, you know, if you guys like this, let us know why. Maybe we're missing something. You know.
Yeah.
I'm not opposed to
the only thing I could see is just there are very few Christmas horror movies, and it plays a lot of Christmas songs.
Yeah, and there's you know, I don't know. This film is really well. Okay, so you were talking about in the original, you like this warm lighting in there. This shit is warm. This living room is warm, like nice Christmas lighting. I can't even tell if it's like if there's some parts that actually don't look that bad, or if I hate this movie so much that it all looks bad.
It looks. Do you want to know my first note of the movie?
Overly lit.
Off the bat, this looks like an MTV movie. Then my second note is everything is lit so flatly.
Yeah. Oh, you know something I love? When you get these childhood flashbacks of Billy, and it's in the same house. I don't think we said that this sorority house is where Billy grew up. Was it in the 70s or 80s? I forget what I think he was born in the 70s maybe. So whatever. This house in the 70s, they kept the decorations. I mean, these decorations never left the house. It's Christmas all year round. These sorority girls have the same garland lining the upstairs. It's the same light strands, basically. Like, how could you even just miss something like that? You were so lazy to just not give this house a different feel when Billy was in it 30 years ago.
How did Billy's mom afford that house?
I mean, I think I wrote that, and I was like, you know what? I'm not even write that because like you could easily just say it was inherited, whatever.
I haven't been as confused since being a kid and wondering how Kevin McAllister's dad afforded that gigantic 10-bedroom house.
His parents made bank. I think they were probably both in real estate or some shit. I don't know.
Oh well, that's presumptuous of you. Do you have any evidence to back that up? Other than they do look like realtors.
Chicago. They're in Chicago.
What if his dad's a famous author?
I know.
Yeah. You just got to own.
Gretchen Wieners is in this. There's a lot of familiar faces in that like 2000 era of horror. Like a lot of remakes. You see all these faces that I mean, the girl from Sky High and Final Destination 3. I forget what her name.
Mary Elizabeth Winstead.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's actually a little bit of a bona fide scream queen.
Yeah, I forget what else she was in, but I remember her face a lot. Gretchen Wieners is in this.
She's... actually, there's a fun fact about that. Amanda Seyfried was almost in the film. I think Michelle Trachtenberg's part. But the director said that he didn't want two Mean Girls cast members in the movie.
Understandable. Because that'll hurt. That'll really
I would have rather Amanda Seyfried.
That's going to kill
Lacey,
the film.
Lacey Chabert kind of sucks.
The girl from the Nightmare on Elm Street remake is in it.
Katie Cassidy. She's also, if anyone saw Arrow on the CW, the TV show, she plays Laurel Lance, aka the Black Canary.
Yeah, so a lot of I don't know what this girl was in. The one that's like a real bitch in this movie. The one that gets drunk and showers. That I forget what she was in. I don't really.
Yeah. Remember how the last movie, the characters felt like real characters and they weren't over-sexualized and they actually felt like real people? That's not this movie. All the fucking characters act like 16-year-old high schoolers, even though they're supposed to be college kids.
They're so mean to each other, like just too much.
They fucking hate each other. And even Mary Elizabeth Winstead character, she just fucking, at the end of the movie, I mean, she's smart. I mean, I guess it didn't work out for her. One of the few off-screen kills, I guess. I mean, I guess you see the blood splatter onto the windshield, but fun fact, the director of this movie wanted either Margot Kidder or the actress who played Phyllis in the original to be the house mother in this movie, but they didn't want to do it. The person who Mary Elizabeth Winstead, I read up that she only did this movie because she is a huge fan of the original. I wonder what she thinks about this movie. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, if you're listening, reach out. Let us know if you're proud of this one. I love you in Sky High. I love you in a lot of your movies. You're great in Final Destination 3. That's probably one of my favorite Final Destination movies, but I don't have a lot of real opinions on this movie. I think this is such a nothing movie. I think there's 2 kills that I enjoy. That being Mrs. Mack is killed by an icicle falling and impaling her head. I think that's fun. And I think at the end, another impaling death. Billy attacks Katie Cassidy. Katie Cassidy is like our final girl in this movie. Billy sneaks to the hospital after there's sort of like a big fight at the house with Agnes and Billy, and then they like fake their deaths, and then they're brought to the hospital and they attack Katie Cassidy. There's a little altercation and Billy gets knocked off the balcony and gets impaled by like a Christmas tree, right?
In the hospital. Yeah. She's just like, this guy's
That's fun.
Really irresponsible. I mean, he just like runs at her and she just kind of like launches him off the rail. So easy.
She gives him the old like duck shoulder chip.
Which honestly,
it's nice.
all right, I will say, wasn't really a bad shot of her like leaning over looking at him, and like behind her you have that silhouette of him with the flashing lights. Like there's some like there's a couple fine shots in this. Guess what? It's not gonna help you. I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. Like
I think from a production standpoint, I don't think this movie is good by any metrics, but I think there's a couple of serviceable moments production wise. And again, I think it was a $9 million budget, so you have quite a bit more money than the original. And the original just has one thing that I hate about this movie is for 2 reasons. A, I think it's a little bit of missed potential, but the original film, despite its budget, it still had a lot of extras. You had like the search party scene. The film was not solely contained to the sorority house. Whereas this film, again, $9 million as opposed to $686,000 like the original. And this film is so self-contained in the isolation of the sorority house that it feels incredibly cheap and low budget. And they try their best, I guess, with like Christmas lights and some Christmas decorations.
It's too much.
And again, it's too much.
There's a point where you're just like overly lighting your scenes where it's like, okay, like tone it down. It's too much. It's not even like, I guess, probably flat. I mean, I don't know.
Would you agree that Would you agree that the 2000s, like the early to mid 2000s, is probably the worst like era for horror?
Possibly. It's really tough. I'd really have to go into the 90s because there's a lot of shit in there. Like,
yeah, but you know what the 90s has? The 90s has Candyman and Scream and
what else?
Do you count The Exorcist 3? I like that movie.
I enjoy it. I think it's a little overrated by, like, there's a lot of people that really praise that. I don't think it's as good as people say, but
no, I think that's a good movie. We're getting off track.
We'll have to talk about that on our own time, but there's like not that much in the 90s. There's still some good horror movies in the 2000s. It's just, it was such a big year for remakes that were so shitty.
The issue too is I have an issue with like a lot of the look of these movies, like this one, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, like 2003 film, and by extension, I know I said early to mid, but even like the 2009 Friday the 13th reboot or remake, whatever, and the 2010 Nightmare on Elm Street, they all just have this like extremely glossy MTV TV movie kind of look where it makes them look really cheap and fake. Whereas, like, again, the writing does a lot in terms of making these people feel like cartoonish characters instead of real people. But the look, too. Like, everything just looks fake. It doesn't feel real. The dialogue, like, there's nothing in the first film that makes me, like, feel like they're not real people, like, in terms of dialogue. Whereas in this one, they just say things that no people say. Like, when they're in the hospital, I know this isn't, like, one of the main characters, but one of the guards says, "This ain't no place for Santa Claus, not during Christmas." That's the only time for Santa Claus. What do you mean? That doesn't make sense. The other line, "It tastes like chicken because it's chicken."
I have that written down.
I wrote I'm gonna kill myself after that one.
I remember when Gretchen Wieners said, I think it was Gretchen, "I'd like to bury the hatchet with my sister," right in her head.
I was just like, that's a good one. We got "Just Fuck Christmas, Fuck It." So that's a good one. I wrote down, why does Mary Elizabeth have a southern accent in this movie? That kind of threw me off. I wrote in, this is where I could tell I was getting angry, because I wrote in all caps, "Oh, look, it's the unicorn thing from the last movie. Remember, guys? Do you remember?"
Yeah, that was a present this time, right? From Eve, the red herring in this one.
Yeah. It's just so frustrating. Oh, I wrote down, again, this is just a minor thing that I don't even think general audience members give a shit about, but we talked a little bit about sound design and sound mixing in the last film. Every one of those phone calls actually sounds like phone calls. In this movie, every single phone call sounds like someone recorded dialogue in a phone or in like a recording booth.
Yeah.
Like none of this, not a single phone call felt real.
It makes me wish that, like, or it makes me just, I can't wait till, like, they just misused the phone call so bad that I just wish they went to texting. But so hopefully I can.
No.
Oh man.
Oh, another great line. "Fuck all you bitches." That's a good one. That's how I should have opened this. Sorry for the listeners. I just bumped my mic. My last note of this movie is, what a pile of fucking shit. I think I don't know what I can say. I think I'm tapped out.
Every frame of this movie you could really criticize. So, like, we'd be here for hours if we just wanted to shit all over this, but this is really bad. Like, holy shit. It's, I hate when I watch a movie and I just cannot even think what the writers and directors were thinking. Like, I can't fathom where the mindset was, what the point was, what they were, like, did you think it was good? Like,
there's a weird misconception that it's only in the last decade or so that writers, directors, filmmakers, production studios, production companies, producers, whatnot, the film industry, media, that only in the last 10 or so years has there been this concept behind using nostalgia and just shoving things from a previous property in your face and saying, "Here, please eat this," even though it's shit. This is 2006, so, this is 18 years ago at this point, and you have a movie where it feels like every other scene is just a reference from the previous movie, but just done a million times worse. Whether it's the eyeball shit that you see multiple times, the fact that Billy just mentions Agnes once or twice in the last film, and now it's an entire fucking character. 50 minutes of fucking flashbacks of these fucking characters fully explaining your villain. So there's no mystery or no suspense in this movie. You know who's doing what right from the get-go. Nothing surprises you. There's nothing interesting.
Why is it the people that clearly don't appreciate and value the original get to direct the remakes? It's every fucking time. Like 90% of the time you get a remake of a horror movie, it's like, did you even like the original, or do you have some vendetta that you just tried to make this bad? As if it's gonna hurt the original. It just makes the original better. Like, you just empower the original even more when you make it bad. So
it concerns me because it makes me question, when you watched the original, what movie did you watch? Did we watch the same movie? If this is what you took from the original?
It's just completely misunderstanding the source. And I get you want to do your own things, but like, I don't know, man. Maybe just have like, well, I don't want to get too insulting because then I just sound like an asshole. But like, this is bad. This is poorly directed. It's poorly written.
It is. Yes. Yes. I want to give Glenn Morgan a little bit of credit. You know, I understand it's probably very difficult being in the studio system, and especially having to deal with the Weinsteins and them forcing you to include things in the script that you didn't want to include. I could definitely see, if you're a fan of the original and understanding how the lack of gore in that movie worked in that film's benefit, wanting to try to emulate that, but then the studio, believing times have changed, forcing you to have more violence. This is kind of the opposite of Scream 3, where the studio said less violence. Also produced by the Weinsteins. Yeah, they can't make up their fucking minds.
Weird.
But either way, I still, though, this film just doesn't really offer anything interesting or creative. I mentioned the snowstorm trapping them in, making the film feel really small and cheap. But I do think that maybe there's something to the idea of being trapped in the sorority house with the killer during a heavy snowstorm. That's interesting. There's one moment in the film where there is a sense of, well, we can't leave. Where the fuck are we going to go? It's a huge snowstorm. It's going to take 2 hours for the police to come and investigate. Oh, yeah.
So you just completely like throw that idea out the window when you make your end scene in a whole different atmosphere.
Agreed. Couldn't agree more. Are you done?
No, I'm ready for 2019.
All right, guys. We are back to discuss Black Christmas 2019, the final film of our discussion today. Directed by Sofia Takal, budget of $5 million, box office 18.5 mil, a surprising 40% on Rotten Tomatoes, and a Metacritic score of 49 out of 100.
Even more surprising.
So, significantly better reviews than Black Christmas 06. And I want to start this off by saying that Black Christmas 2019 is a fucking abysmal piece of shit. An absolute stinker of a movie.
You guys thought I was confused at director's choice in the last one. I don't know what fucking movie she watched. This is just... I mean, you'll just be confused from start to finish.
This is not a Black Christmas movie.
Let's just get that out of the way.
This shares as much in common with the original Black Christmas movie as Marriage Story and Fast and Furious, in which they're just both about family.
Yeah, like you have a sorority and a few strands of Christmas lights. That is the only thing you get from this.
Yeah. And that is why, even though this may be a worse film in every single regard than the 06 one, which we did heavily discuss as being fucking abysmal, this one, at least I think, is a little bit more entertaining. And it does its own thing to where I can separate it enough from the original that it's almost pretty much its own bad horror movie. 06 is too in line with the first movie and pulls too much from the first movie and just does everything worse that I feel insulted. Not that I don't feel a little bit insulted while watching this movie, because I for sure do. And you're really testing my patience, Black Christmas franchise. But for different reasons. But the last 10 minutes of this movie are, at the very least, some of the dumbest shit I've ever seen. And for that reason alone, I can kind of laugh at it.
Yeah, this one went quicker than 06. I think it was just because I was in like even more shock, but I was so baffled that I just didn't know how much more stupid this could get. So I was just engaged of like, oh, okay, what is the next scene gonna just bring? How much shit is it gonna bring to the table?
It's like an anomaly.
Yeah. So this one went quicker, and not for any good reason. This was entertaining for all of the wrong reasons, and really, it's not entertaining. Just compared to 06, it's a little bit more. I don't even want to. I'm not gonna say enjoyable. No.
I like one shot in this movie, and it's the snow angel shot. That's the one shot I think is a little creative in this movie. Everything else is fucking terrible. And before we just kind of, rip this movie a new one for a couple minutes and then head on out, we got to set the stage because Josh made a fun comment earlier that what's better than 2 killers is 100. Because this film completely ditches the Billy, Agnes, mystery killer backstory stuff, and instead the killers in this movie is not one person, not 2 people, not even 3 people. It is an entire frat of men who go around and are killing and attacking members of the sorority in a voodoo ritualistic way to reestablish the patriarchy and to knock women down a peg. And that is the plot of this movie.
This shit sucked. This, where... I don't even know how you could call this Black Christmas. Like, I get it's so obviously not a Black Christmas movie, but like, there's gotta be some copyright issues at that point. How do you even get the rights to this and just do this?
Do you know the history behind the production of this movie?
No, and I don't. Well, no, I do want to. Just didn't have any interest. To look.
This goes to show you companies will just throw money around with no regard for how it's used. Again, $5 million budget, still bigger than the original. I think even accounting for inflation, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not doing math again, but $5 million budget. This film was, I believe, announced in July. Let me just, I want to get this exactly correct because I do think it is kind of pivotal to the overall film that we got. I believe that this film was announced in July of 2019. I'm sorry, June 2019, revealed that a Black Christmas remake would happen. This film was then released in December of that year. In 6 months, they wrote the script, went through pre-production, shot the movie, and edited it, marketed it, and put it out in December of 2019.
Why
in 6
was
months.
there a rush?
Like you said, so much of what you get out of this movie is not enjoyment. It's baffling. Mm-hmm. And we highlighted how the original Black Christmas is a film that tackles feminism in a pretty mature and thoroughly thought out way. It doesn't detract from the plot, but it is a part of the plot. A part of the film is women taking agency and fighting back. Well, this film kind of takes that premise and really runs with it. And I'm going to jump around, guys, and if you're mad at me for that, then this is not the podcast for you. As I said, the last 10 minutes of this movie almost turned into a superhero movie. As
fucking Lord of the Rings.
More Lord of the Rings. That's a better analogy because our main character is brought to the ritual room where the frat forces her to kneel before them and declare men her superior. And that's when the door busts down. And in the most epic badass fashion I've ever seen in a feature film, all the surviving sorority girls with weapons emerge, and they do a feral scream, and they go, ah, and they charge the men, and a very poorly shot and edited fight sequence breaks out between the frat and sorority. And it's at this moment, Josh, where I had a fun idea of how you could actually make this movie good.
Okay.
You don't call it Black Christmas. You title the movie Greek Wars. You don't make it a serious attempt at trying to make a poignant feminist film wrapped up in a slasher, because it did not work and it fell flat on its face. But you can go that route if you make this a satire. If you make this an over-the-top satire movie that's poking fun at this while also raising awareness, and you make it funny and you lean into some of the dumb shit they say in this movie. If you guys were wondering, they actually use the line, "not all men." It's actually a line. And it's uttered by the one guy, one of two guys in the movie who is actually like a pretty decent guy and kind of gets angry, and his entire character switches out of nowhere. Oh, he also has another great line where he says, "I like beer." So I don't know how to dissect. Sorry guys, I know this is the podcast where we discuss and break down and dissect. This is a hard one because this isn't a movie. It's not a movie. This is a political message. I am left-leaning. I am liberal. And I hate this movie.
Yeah. Wait. So you were talking about not all men. Did you finish that thought?
That's just one of the. That's just one of the lines.
How'd you like that
It's a line
scene?
in the movie. Dude, just everything is wrong with this movie. And they had to drag Carrie Elwes in it.
Is that how you say his last name?
Ulwes.
I don't know how to say it.
Elwes. I don't know either. I'm gonna go with Elwes. Elwes.
I don't know. I always thought it was Elwes, but I could be.
The guy, Dr. Lawrence from Saw.
Yeah. So okay. I mean, let's try to like maybe tackle some of the scenes.
Lead the way, my friend. I'm
The opening scene. Oh, you want to talk about dull and flat? This fucking movie entirely, like you said, the last one kind of was lit, like flatly lit. This whole movie just looks fucking boring and just not 1 ounce of personality to this. And I mean, at least the last one tried to lean into like that Christmassy vibe. This one just doesn't. There's a few decorations here and there, but there's like nothing. There's like a strand here of lights, a strand there of light. It's like it's insane just how lazy this movie is.
Well, how could you forget the Christmas dance, Josh? When they
Mean Girls.
do their little.
What's weird is that Gretchen is in the last one, and in this one they do the same exact Mean Girls dance. That's strange. Dude, it's like it's such a slap in the face because so this movie does also tackle sexual assault. The main girl got roofied and assaulted while she was sleeping by one of the frat guys, and they do this Christmas dance. They do a remix of Up on the Rooftop, and they just rewrite the lyrics to call out the frat for sexual
culture.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and it's just like that feels like a slap in the face to like victims that it's like saying this is the way to go about it. This is like there's like a whole scene where like the main girl saying I didn't want to like do that, you forced me, and the other girl's like saying, you know, she's like giving her reasons why she had to and stuff like that. But like, how about you go about it right and you don't make it like a joke? Like you're doing you're singing a Christmas song and you're singing something about something that's so traumatic where it's like, is it even serious to you? Why even you're trying to help your friend, why don't you do it in a fucking respectful way? It's
exactly.
Like,
and that's what it always comes down to, especially, and not to parallel this with real life too much, but allow victims to cope in the ways that they feel they need to. You can't tell another person how to help themselves. They have to figure it out themselves. And obviously you can offer advice and whatnot, but the one character, and so many of the characters are just extremely unlikable in this movie. But the one character in particular, I don't even remember the character's name, but Imogen Poot, the main character, her friend, her sorority sister, she's so forceful, and they do this song, and like you said, calling out rape culture and frats, and they get off the stage, and they, like, the Imogen Poots, she says that'll teach what's his name, Peter,
Brian, I think.
Brian, whatever, the frat dude who assaulted her. She says that'll teach him not to roofie any more girls, and the friend takes that video without Imogen Poot's consent and posts it online for everybody to see without asking for her consensus. And when Imogen Poots rightfully says, "Hey, that's not cool. Like, that's not, like, let me deal with it the way I want to. Like, you're a steamroller. Like, you just push and you push and you push and you just force people to fight when they don't always want to fight. Like, let us deal with it." And her friend's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'll stop fighting when they stop fighting." And again, I'm not saying either are right or wrong, but when it comes to other people's trauma and other people's story, you have to let other people tell their story. And this film just does not handle any of these social issues with any sort of nuance or grace or subtlety or poignancy. It's so on the nose in every single scene. Every single bit of dialogue is just in your face, genuinely just using bits of real life and ham-fisting them into a very generic and poorly made slasher. And that's another issue with this movie. Is I understand, and if you look up any reviews of this movie, the ones that are positive, typically what they find positive is they agree with the message. But the issue is, you don't always have to like movies even if you agree with the message. There's plenty of films where it has a positive, good message. That doesn't make it a good film. And even if you take away, that sort of aspect and you get rid of it, sure, it maybe makes the script a little bit more logical and feel a little bit, more authentic. But see, I'm so frustrated with this movie.
Let me just look at every Christmas Hallmark movie and say that's good because it has a good message. Yeah, it's a Christmas movie. It's gonna have a good message.
God's Not Dead is those are great movies because it's a positive message. Like, no, having a positive message just does not equate to a quality film. And again, this film is, like you said, it's poorly made. It has really bad pacing. The only reason that it flies by is because you're baffled and you just want to see what dumb shit they're going to do or say next. Yeah. And it's not entertaining. The only entertaining bit is the stupid fight at the end, and even that's poorly shot and framed.
Let me tell you what entertained me, and I almost bursted out laughing.
Please do.
First off, the fact that what a poor design in, like, your killer's look. These guys are dressed up as a cheap Halloween costume imitation of the Death Eaters in Order of the Phoenix. Mm-hmm. They look identical. They have, like, the same mask and just a hood and just a long robe. It's so fucking boring.
It's like the we have Death Eaters at home vibe.
Yeah. And dude, when the one Death Eater just whips out his fucking bow and arrow in the house, and he just starts Legolas that shit around. I lost it. I was like, no fucking way did they give this guy a bow and arrow. Anything else would have sufficed. Like, holy shit.
Dude, the one friend too, it's Imogen Poots, the friend who gave her shit and posted the video, and then their third friend, the one who's dating the guy who snaps out of nowhere and it says the "not all men" line, and she goes to try to fight the one killer because at the time they think it's just the one killer. And I've seen this movie twice now, and even the first time I watched it, I was like, I get there's a little bit of fear, but there's three of you. He just has a bow and arrow, which is a far away weapon. I guess he does have a knife because he stabs her, but there's three of you. Maybe bum rush him. I like, you're all three there. You can try to kick his ass. But just the one girl, like, slowly approaches him and she keeps turning her head and looking back. And I'm like, if you're going to try to fight him alone, maybe don't keep turning your head to him. And then she tries to, like, hit him and he blocks the punch and just stabs her and she just dies. I don't think, like, I'm talking about that kill, but, like, it's not like I can remember it really. I don't think there's really any memorable deaths in this movie. Again, the last movie sucked the life out of me. But this movie, it doesn't even have like a fun kill. It's like PG-13, so there's just nothing unsettling like the original, and the's nothing even like dumb gory like the last one.
Like they're not even like, at least the last one, there's like maybe a little fun the guy's having, like he's trying to like, just whatever. There's like I don't even think any of the crew members wanted to be there. Like it just seems like everyone just wanted to go home, finish this production, and get the hell out of there. Which I guess I would too. I don't know. Like, Carrie Ellis's character is so obvious when he is when he like spills his stuff, and you just see a list of like all the girls' names. I'm like, okay, I mean, sure, yeah. So this guy's there's like no sense of like mystery to this at all.
And dude, oh wait, I lied. There's one fun kill. It's when so you find out that one of the sorority sisters betrays all of her females and wants to be a submissive female. And so she stays with the guy and follows the guy who does attempt to assault her earlier in the film, to which Imogen Poots does essentially save her. But she turns on her sorority friends, is able to collect and steal all of their personal items, so that the possessed frat guys knew who to go after and kill. She turns on her sorority sisters, and to get Imogen Poots to submit, they have one of the frat boys walk over and just snap her neck and just twists it like a pickle jar, and she's dead. So the one girl who was on their side, and they just fucking kill her.
Yeah, I guess she wasn't good enough. They wanted the final girl, I guess. I don't know.
Oh, dude, what is one of the frat guys? And he says to Imogen Poots, he's like, "I said kneel, bitch." They're like mustache twirling James Bond villains.
They're all caricatures of like whatever the fuck. I don't even know.
The
opening scene. First off, the texting. Oh my god, really?
Yeah, no. You said you wish they had done texting in the last one.
I know, because they butchered
you
the phone
regret
calls.
That?
Yeah.
She's getting texts from the dead fucking president of the school.
Yeah, and hopefully you guys, like, looking back to what I said before, no, I don't fucking like the texting. My god. Like, I'll take some bad use of phone calls over this. It's so...
Yeah, the phone calls were shitty in the last one, but
the opening scene, she's getting texts. This guy's, like, walking behind her just casually. She wraps the keys around her hand, and she goes to just like fucking deck this guy. Good thing he made a turn, because he just would have gotten fucking punched in the face with keys. But then she's getting chased by the killer. She gets away from him twice, and then all of a sudden she rings the doorbell, and he's inside the house. He answers the door, and then she just gives up. She's like, oh god, and she just backs up slowly and lets him kill her. How about you just run? Just keep running. Don't accept defeat.
And it's like they want you, like, again, like it's similar to the last film, just no layer of mystery ever in this movie. Like you said, Carrie Elwes' character is super obvious right from the get-go. Like, it's not bad enough that he already has like a vendetta against one of the main sorority girls, has an issue with her, and is very just creepy and ominous in every scene he's in. But to have him drop his stuff and to see the list of female names is just... Is this movie made for children? I recognize that it's PG-13, and I saw some people who are on the positive side of this film say that this is a good entry-level horror film for fans. But if I saw this when I was like 13 or 14, I would probably hate horror movies and stay away from them.
Someone write on, I think Reddit, someone said this is a good gateway movie for like women, or gateway horror movie for women.
You know what's a great gateway into horror movies for women?
Scream.
The original Black Christmas.
Or that.
The original one, which is actually a good movie. And if you want people to like movies that like have any semblance of nuance and believability to them, and that's, again, like, there was something so raw and unhinged about Billy in the original film, and for this movie to just be over the top cartoonish in every shape, way, and form, to the point where just the dialogue, again, mustache twirling villains, like, it's no level of nuance, no level of subtlety. It gets supernatural. I don't know if we really said it. I mentioned that the frat boys were possessed, but they were basically using voodoo magic from the the statued head of their president, of the founder of the college or whatever, that bled black goo, and the goo turned the pledges evil. What are you doing? What the fuck are we doing here? Why is this a thing? Why is it happening? I have a headache.
Yeah. Yeah. Likewise.
What an abysmal attempt at a film. This is where like people like listen, there are some Blumhouse movies that are good, but it is to the point. It is movies like this where when I see the Blumhouse logo now, I get really I know what I'm in for. I'm in for a really underwhelming copy paste generic film. Did you also hear too that apparently Jason Blum potentially made this film to save his ass because he made some demeaning comments towards women, and then it was like apparently like a month after that he made those statements that he announced that they were making a Black Christmas remake?
No.
Yeah. I wonder what the intentions were here. No, I don't know. There's, I hate that comment because there's so many better intro horror films for women. I think The Babadook, it has some issues.
How about The Descent? The
Descent is phenomenal. Sidney Prescott is like one of my favorite movie characters ever. Like you said, Scream is another film that doesn't like over sexualize its characters, and this one doesn't, but it does to an degree. Like they're doing like a dance in these like little skimpy outfits, and I get it's a Mean Girls parody, but again, you're supposed to be empowering and have this strong female message, or at least that's what you're telling me. Again, this isn't a movie. It's a message.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, dude. I don't know. What do you have more?
No, I'll tell you what
on in this.
Not at all. I mean, like it would just be like repetitive at this point because there's like nothing good about this.
No, it is devoid of, like you said, any personality, intrigue, interesting plot points.
I'm excited to rate these.
Do you want to get into that?
No, you can if you have closing.
I just have a couple pieces of dialogue. That's actually what most of my notes turned into towards this movie. We have "Merry Christmas to you from this Jew. Boys will be boys. You bitches are all the same. We need more than feelings in this business." That's a line from a police officer to Imogen Poots' character. I like beer, which I brought up earlier. When Imogen Poots is freaking out at one point, I'm sorry. This is the beer guy, the boyfriend who just completely changes his personality. His girlfriend like is kicking him out, and he says, "You're hysterical." Nobody. And then he comes back later and gets fucking murked immediately by one of the frat boys. But before he gets murked, he says, "Nobody hurts my girls," and then he immediately got an arrow to the dome. Oh no, I messed up. I am so sorry to my fans, or to the fans of this podcast. I messed up the quote at the beginning of the movie. The actual line is, "I want you to suck a fat fart because you just got zetaed." I messed up the quote.
Wait, what did you say?
I just said, "I want you to suck a fart." I forgot it's a fat fart. It's a mean stinker.
Damn it, Jim.
And then the last note I wrote is a quote from Carrie Elwes that says, "We're not insane, simply men." So that's any more thoughts on Black Christmas 2019?
Fuck no, it doesn't deserve any more thoughts. Except for
no, this is a waste of time. I hate that I've had to see this movie twice in my life because it is genuinely the only thing I think I would recommend it for is if you want to see how to not make a horror film. Mm-hmm. This would be probably I have a list on Letterboxd of worst horror films I've ever seen, and I put Black Christmas 2006 and 2019 on it after.
Is this the worst horror remake you've seen?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it, but I could absolutely see it being.
There's
taking the cake.
Not much good when it comes to remakes, especially in the horror genre. But this may take the cake for the worst.
Yeah. I heard Pet Sematary is pretty bad.
That is a bad one. That is a really bad one. But the thing is, the original Pet Sematary isn't as fond in a lot of people's minds, myself included, as Black Christmas is. So,
yeah.
Shall we get into our ratings then?
Let's do it.
All right. I think we did a pretty efficient job this episode. I'll kick off. I'm gonna give the original Black Christmas. Let's see. I want to make sure I get this correct. I'm going to give it. Oh, I didn't actually put a score in my Letterboxd. I'm gonna give it a 9.5 out of 10. I genuinely at this point, I think it's just one of the most well-crafted, well-written horror films. It does so much right. It's one of the few horror films that I genuinely really like the characters. They're actually interesting people who I'm not rooting for to die. Even movies like Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2, which I love, I don't give a shit about any of the characters in those movies. Whereas this one, you genuinely, towards the end, I don't root for Jess to die. I would like to see her survive the film. And a lot of that is just tone and maturity in this, and obviously just masterful filmmaking. Is
this one of your favorites now?
I put it at number 11 on my top list. I have my top 10, and it didn't crack my top 10, but I stuck it at number 11.
Is that just favorite? Or is this greatest horror movies?
No, I wouldn't put it as the 11th greatest horror film of all time if I was trying to be as unbiased as possible, but I could definitely see if I sat down and tried to make an unbiased top 50, I could see it cracking the top 25. I think there's some really masterful filmmaking in this, horror aside, in movies, period. Like you said, the Margot Kidder death sequence is unbelievable.
Yeah, that's really good. So Jake's rating is going to make me look like a prick, but I am going to give this movie a 7.9. 7.9.
Wow.
To be honest, I think that's a really good score. I probably enjoy this. I think I enjoy this movie more than that score reflects. I don't think I could put it in the 8s.
It didn't even seem like you had many criticisms with it from a filmmaking standpoint. I'm shocked.
It was more interesting to just talk about the stuff it does really well, because I do think this movie gets overlooked a lot. But like I said, the characters are good. They don't I like Jess a lot. There's good interactions with Peter. Peter's good.
Yeah.
No one really stands out above Jess that much. I know you liked Barb a lot. I like her, but I guess I don't know. It doesn't feel like they're as this movie's on par with other movies that I would give in the 8s, if that makes sense.
Would you say that the characters are at the very least very memorable, even if they're not all developed?
Yeah. There's nothing wrong with them. But yeah, a movie as a whole, I still had some issues with it. And mostly I didn't care for Mrs. Mack. I didn't care for the dad. Nash was funny, but he was kind of I don't know.
I think that the movie is so kind of drenched in that dreadful tone that I think some moments of levity did help the film. So, even the first, we didn't mention it, but the first time you meet Claire's dad, he gets just absolutely decked in the face by a snowball.
Yeah.
Falls to his
that
knees.
Scene actually made me just feel bad for him. Me too. I just had more sympathy for him.
Incredibly bad for him the entire movie, and I think that's probably why his character worked. I just, you feel really bad for him.
I guess the ending, just with some believability, is just kind of left,
That's.
But
hey, I'm not gonna. Yeah, it's a good score. It's a good score.
But 9.5. That seems to. I have my list of greatest horror movies, and it doesn't come near those movies for me. So
this, I guarantee you guys, Josh would rather watch the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari.
Depends on my mood. Depends on my mood.
No, you're not putting that on over Black Christmas, you coward.
You want to talk about some masterful filmmaking? You watch that, all right? Some good ass production design too. But
yeah, if I ever want to go to sleep,
whatever. All right. I'll kick us off for Black Christmas 06.
Go for it.
This one's gonna land at a. Let's go with a 1.6.
1.6.
Yep.
And that's 06. I'm giving Black Christmas 06 a 1 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah.
I'm interested then because I see your letterbox scores and that you might have to bump that down then.
I will. The more we were discussing it, it's one of those like whereas like earlier, if you guys are fans of our Patreon, we recorded our bonus episode for our weekly Wednesdays, and head over to Patreon if you guys want to hear more content from us. Subscribe over there, and it would really help out with our finances. Keep the show going. No, we recorded an episode talking about the film Network, whereas that's a film that every time I think about it, it gets better in my mind. Black Christmas 06 is the exact opposite of that, where every single time I think about it or everything we said about it made me hate that movie more. So, yeah, 1 out of 10. Clean.
And let me just say, your rating for my rating for Network, I mean, if I gave the rating you gave for Black Christmas, the fact that it would be like 0.3 away from Network, that feels weird to me. And I get
but again,
we rate differently, so
we discussed it differently. If you guys haven't listened to that episode, basically, when I'm giving a film a score and I'm considering giving it like a 9 or a 10, like in my opinion, one of the best, I do factor in what it is trying to go for. So it's hard to compare like a really thoughtful and poignant film like Network, which is incredibly ahead of its time. But you know what? So is Black Christmas. Like we said, it was very taboo to even bring up abortion at that time, and that it's a focal point of that film, and they handled it with absolute grace. And I think it's aged extremely well. The fact that it's a movie that's now again 50 years old, turning 50 this December, it has aged beautifully, in my opinion, like a fine wine.
Fair enough. All right,
shall I kick us off for 2019?
What do you got for 2019?
All right, I'm going to give Black Christmas 2019 a 1 out of 10.
Same score.
They're fucking awful, but for different reasons.
Wow.
If I had to watch one again, I would watch the 2019 one. Like that's one I could show someone and be like, look at how baffling everything that happens in this movie is. I wouldn't even recommend anybody watch the 06 one. There's nothing you can gain from it.
I'd probably watch I'd probably watch Flubber over like a better, Rob Williams movie, but Flubber stinks.
Oh, I texted you I texted Josh the other day when watching Black Christmas 2019, and I think I was referencing 06, but it stands for either film. One of my most hated movies, and you guys can send me all the hate comments you want. I'd like Adam Sandler, but Grown Ups is one of my least favorite movies of all time. I absolutely fucking despise that movie, and more so Grown Ups too, but I would rather watch Grown Ups than either Black Christmas 06 or 2019.
Oh, me too.
Yeah,
me too.
And
so
hate Kevin Smith.
let me just land Black Christmas 2019 at a 0.6. 0.6.
It's insane. That's so low. I love it. Honestly, I was thinking about giving it like a 0.75, but I was like, there is some mild entertainment in it, just in how stupid it is. Yeah. All right, guys.
So our lowest rated movies so far.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
Yeah, that's crazy that we got lower than some of those Halloween towns. Those at least have a little bit of charm to them.
Yeah.
Little bit of charm, whereas they just, I don't know. I just don't. You're going to need a lot of special eggnog around the holiday season to get through those two movies. All right.
What you got for me, Jake?
I got a little question for you, Josh. What's Forrest Gump's password?
What?
1, Forrest, 1.
Oh, that's pretty solid. I'll be honest.
Yeah.
That's good.
Got him with that one. All right, guys. Well, thank you for listening. I think we did actually a pretty decent job of staying more concise this episode, probably because there's not a lot to say about the two pile of shit Black Christmas remakes. But the original was a really good time talking about that one and revisiting that. Let us know down in the comments, guys, if you do like Black Christmas 06 and 2019 and you think that we are jackasses who don't know what we're talking about. Please let us know why in the comments down below. We'd love to interact with you guys. And we love being told when we're wrong because neither of us are argumentative people, and and neither of us are stubborn in our ways. But with that being said, guys, I hope you are having a lovely holiday season, spending some time with family. I do understand for a lot of people that the holidays are a tough time and can be for a lot of people, and I want you guys to know that it's okay to feel a little sad around Christmas time. It doesn't have to be all cheers and smiles. It's okay to feel a little sad, a little down in the dumps, a little blue. They're very valid feelings and opinions to have around that time, but also, take time to enjoy it. I understand the cold can be miserable and painful, but nice little snow day here and there. It looks a little nice for a couple hours. Maybe you guys go sledding or tubing. But either way, I hope you guys are having a wonderful Christmas time. And thank you again for listening so much, guys. We have one more episode coming out this calendar year, and we are tackling the Tim Allen Santa Claus trilogy, going out with a bang, talking about all three Santa Claus movies all in one episode to end the year. And who knows, maybe that episode will talk about a little bit of our own personal Christmas traditions and what we like to do around the holidays. Maybe have some fun little questions like what our least favorite gifts have been in our life, and any Christmas memories we may have. I don't know. It might be a little bit of a longer one, but it'll be the last one of the year. So stay tuned, guys, for that. And Josh, do you have any other thoughts?
Thoughts? I mean, hey, guys, if we're in December, so I hope you guys are enjoying your Christmas time. And if you're not, I highly recommend not watching either Black Christmas remake. It'll just make everything worse. So, but again, catch us for Santa Claus when it's a little closer to Christmas. Give us a follow on Instagram. Let us know how you like the show. Give us some feedback, any positive or negative you got. We'll be happy to interact.
Absolutely, guys. Did you plug our socials?
Yeah. Franchise Deep Dive on Instagram. You can also email us, franchisedeepdive@gmail.com. That's where you'll probably get the most interaction from us.
Yeah, let us know, guys. Any movie franchises you want us to tackle. We haven't really planned out 2025 yet. We do have a really fun one planned for the beginning of the year in January. So I'll give you guys a little hint. You may want to stay away from garlic, and I don't know. Maybe you won't see yourself in a mirror. Wink, wink. Stay away from steaks too. It's Twilight. We're doing Twilight. All right, guys. That is it for today's episode. Thanks again for listening. And yeah, like Josh said, reach out to us. We'd love to interact with you guys. I hope you have enjoyed listening to us thus far and shit on the Black Christmas movies. And that is really it for today. I think that's it for me. Goodbye.
That's it for me. Later, guys.